This is Fernando's Hellcat Swap 350Z. Sure, it looks awesome, sounds pretty cool, makes enough power to break pretty much whatever you want. But on the other hand, you can't slide it for more than 15 seconds without it overheating.
One single drift, you're ready to break it.
You gave me a broken car. It leaks more oil than the Exxon Valdez. What's that?
Race car marks.
And there's a distinct lack of
But we're about to fix it.
That's right, we're gonna do an aftermarket cam to make it chop, an ice tank to keep it cool, and then possibly, if we have time in the end, we'll fix that oil leak. But hey, these two are the star of the show, right?
Exactly.
Assuming this all goes according to plan, we should be able to throw it back on the dyno and make a ton more power than we did last go around. God damn!
You know, like, we are in the northeast. We have to put some protection under the car that way it doesn't get rust.
So this is comprehensive rust protection is what you're saying?
Do you see any rust?
You know what I think of when I see this? Those oil spill commercials that like Dawn dish soap uses, where they're like bathing a small duck after an oil spill. That's what this car makes me think of. It's leaking there, it's leaking there, it's leaking up there. So maybe we should make that a priority, not, if we have time, we gotta do something about this.
Definitely.
Good news is we don't have to drain the oil, we can just drain the coolant, because there's probably no oil left in it, right?
Ah. Yeah.
It's clean.
Yeah.
I guess that's what happens when it self-drains every 50 miles and you gotta pour a quarter in it.
Hey, at least we ain't leaking coolant, right?
We ain't leaking coolant yet. No, dude, gotta give it credit. Cooling system, that's good. The intercooler heat exchanger system, that's good as well. Working on 350Zs ain't so bad. All right, so we got the majority of the front of the engine torn down. We got to pull the timing cover, the water pump, and then the timing set, and then we can yank that cam out. But before we do that, what do you say we answer the clearly most commonly asked question on this car that I have not at all wanted to answer to this point? So technically, success. There's no chance we're getting this back in. So we will have to modify this lip, but we do have to, on some level, make this car serviceable. Again, you have to be able to change spark plugs, or I don't know, compression test your engine when you miss-shift and rev it to like 9,500 RPMs, right, Fernando?
Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Probably happen. Either way, we need to be able to do this much easier than this, so we'll probably, have to do a little modification of that lip. Now, we don't technically need to remove this blower, but I kind of forgot to mention, oh, there's a fuel line connected. I kind of forgot to mention, we're gonna do a pulley as well, so might as well pull it off and make it just a little bit easier.
We need more boost.
We should probably hit that fuel line.
Got it?
Yep. Just as we drew it up. 80% ain't bad, right?
It's true.
Timing cover should be free now, assuming I didn't forget anything. There we go.
Goji. That looks familiar.
It does. Been in here kind of recently, right?
Yeah.
Last time we just locked this cam gear to get rid of the VVTI. VVT on these, not VVTI is Toyota. This time, putting the choppy boy in, doing it the right way.
All this part of the job should be pretty familiar to you, right?
You know, the Mopars are getting quite familiar. So I've done this a few times before. Pull our rocker shaft assemblies out. And then that is going to let us take all of our push rods out. Now with our push rods out, there's no more tension on the valve train. None of our valves are open. We can go ahead and untension our timing chain with a small Allen key, just like that. And now we can rip out this cam. I love how simple these American motors are. Mopar's like, you know what? One plate, one cam, a couple bolts holding it in, good to go.
And we made power.
Check out that beauty. Flying Ryan Performance, the same one I have in my truck. They're Titan 2 camshaft. It's a nice shaft if I've ever seen one. Now, of course, before we stick it in, go ahead and excessively lube it up. And yes, it is extremely cold in the shop. That's why this stuff looks like jelly. Last thing, before we pull the old shaft out, I'm gonna spin it around quite a bit to make sure all the lifters get up in their lifter trays and don't fall down. Hopefully with all this cold oil, it'll just keep those lifters nice and suctioned up. If we hear a lifter drop, that is bad news. That means we gotta pull cylinder heads. Do a quick inspection for wear to make sure there's no damage to the lobes that would indicate a bad lifter. No, this looks really nice. This looks way nicer than the stock cam that came out of my truck motor. So I'm kind of jealous on that. There's enough playing around though, it's time to put it in. Here we go. It's such a satisfying feeling, isn't it? Oh yeah, we're home, baby. There we are. One freshly installed shaft. Now, to account for that hog-ass cam we just tossed in the engine, we gotta do a little bit of valve tray modification. This is the stock valve spring. It's no good to us anymore. Fernando called up the guys at PAC, said I need the stiff ones. They sent them over. Now we're gonna throw these in. What we're gonna do is fill the cylinders with air. That way when we take off these valve spring retainers, the valves don't fall into the engine, because then we'd have to pull off the cylinder heads, and we definitely don't want to do that. Now this does end up being fairly time consuming. You got to do it 16 times. Each one, best case scenario, takes 3 minutes. The only real thing you have to worry about are dropping any of these tiny little valve locks down into the engine. They're real small, your hands are all oily. They tend to get lost very easily. So you like to try to stick them in a magnetic tray or something. It's the one part you really need to keep accounted for. There's our old valve spring, our old valve retainer, which we're actually gonna reuse. And while we're in here, we're also gonna change the valve stem seals, which this engine only had 40,000 miles on it, so we probably don't need to, but with any luck, we won't ever have to take this back off of here, Fernando. You can run this for another 100,000 miles, so fresh set of seals could never hurt. We're also gonna have to swap out the stock valve spring locator that's made for the stock valve spring with the sticker one with 2 shims on top of it that's made specifically for these aftermarket springs. And then the trickiest part of all, which you're probably not gonna be able to see, reinstalling the valve locks. And there we are, one successfully sprung valve. Probably not the best way to put that, but I'm just gonna roll with it. A cool 2 hours later, we finally got our valve spring upgrade complete. Now we get to upgrade our push rods as well. We're gonna swap out to these aftermarket units, also by Flying Ryan Performance. It's gonna account for our new cam job, make sure everything is still right lengthwise. There we go. I can't get the push rod in because, where's the hammer? You know, it's a swapped car. You gotta improvise sometimes. Right in. With the last of our new parts installed, we can lock down our rockers, seal up the rest of the engine, and try to install our coil packs. Normally, this isn't even something that would, you know, peg the radar as being hard. We did manage to get this third one in far easier than I anticipated. Actually, I didn't even pick up the camera to film it, so I figured it was gonna be some hour-long ordeal, and it just turned out not to be. No.
And that was the hardest one, right?
Yes, well, hardest one so far. I think we got it. I think we got it. Not ideal, not by any means fun, not efficient, but you can do it. We'll call that a fat W, and now we can move on to the supercharger. We're gonna stick a smaller pulley on it, specifically a 2.75 pulley, to up the boost, therefore up the power. To be fair, we weren't even planning on doing a pulley. We were gonna put the cam in it, toss it on the dyno, see how it goes, and call it a day. We figured since this whole unit has to come off anyway, I mean, why not, right?
Exactly.
What's a couple $100 more when you're, you know, saving a ton of money on your car insurance with the sponsor of today's video, Insurify. With Insurify, you can slash your insurance bill in half, all with the same or even better coverage. And that is because Insurify puts the insurance companies in competition for your business, meaning they're going to hit you with their best offer right off the jump. It truly is the fast, free, and easy way to shop around for car insurance. You just answer a few quick questions about yourself and your vehicle usage, enter a few details about your car, and boom, Insurify shows you all the available offers. Not only are you going to get the best rate possible, but you can be insured in minutes, which means no more sitting on the phone with an insurance agent for 30 minutes, which, you know, really comes in handy when you're buying a new project car every 3 weeks. Insurify is on a mission to make insurance simpler, smarter, and more affordable. And after trying out their platform, I honestly can't imagine comparing insurance rates any other way. Seriously, guys, it is basically free money. Takes like 2 minutes. So click the link in the description and make the insurance companies work for your business. Now, on another note, this blower, it is incredibly clean. Like, way cleaner than it probably should be. I know that gray Hellcat we took it out of only had 40,000 miles on it, but this thing looks so stupid clean, it almost makes me think it was replaced at some point. Either that or really well taken care of. At least before we bought it. At this point, we've done this whole pulley install like 5 different times on 5 different cars, so we're not going to get into the whole school lesson here, but the way it works is ultra simple. The smaller the pulley hanging off the front of the supercharger, the more times the supercharger is going to spin around per 1 revolution of the crank pulley. The faster the blower's spinning, the more boost it makes, which of course translates into more power. Back when I was new to superchargers, it was a really odd concept to grasp. Of course, with turbos, generally the bigger they are, the more power you make. So to think that you have to downsize something to make more power, it doesn't compute. The math barely maths until you kind of understand how it works, then it's very simple.
All right, I think I'm gonna lie here.
Yep. Smooth enough, I guess, right?
No, I need a turbo.
Now, one thing we're gonna have to collectively cross our fingers on here is that our supercharger belt still fits. Hopefully, since we'd already got an aftermarket belt for this lower pulley, oh yeah, it should fit. That's not gonna work. When these engines are running, these belt tensioners are slapping back and forth, and as best you can, you want to be dead in the middle of that range. You can't be by either end, because when the tensioner bottoms out on either end, bad things happen. Luckily, we've accumulated some belts over the years. A ton to be exact.
I like it.
Oh. Let's see if we have the right one. This one that was on the car, it's a 59.4 inch belt. Let's see what else we got here. 57.2, probably too short. 57.9, that might work. We've ordered a lot of wrong belts, obviously. I think 57.9 is the winner. Let's try this one. I think this will work, actually. Just a matter of getting around the pulleys. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. With our pulley swap officially in the books, now it's time to see if we can make this thing slightly less of an environmental hazard. I've already went around and hopefully at least fixed some of the smaller leaks by replacing a couple O-rings, but now we gotta account for what I think at least is the main culprit in this oil pan sealing surface. I kinda did what it was supposed to. That is not a lot of room though. Can we get it down further? That might get us there. That's a little better. Sound of silicone breaking.
Oh, it's a zip tie.
A zip? Whoa. Repeat that, please.
Yeah.
What did you just say? What?
Don't
Where's the
look at
zip
me.
tie? Oh, I got the oil pan zip tied on. No wonder it's leaking.
What?
I don't know. I mean, it's just around the gasket, right? Cool.
What is that?
Ethanol, probably.
Okay.
Just moisture, because this thing doesn't get driven that often.
What it needs to do?
Either drive it more often or don't run ethanol.
Driver.
Now that Fernando spent the last, what, 3.5 hours cleaning out all this congealed ethanol, we can try to seal this thing up the right way. Starting with, oh, that did not go as I expected.
Please don't damage that
One moment, please.
Yeah.
Starting with a new oil pan gasket. So I think that was one of our issues. You can kind of see the sealing surface of this oil pan gasket goes inboard right there, but this oil pan, there is nothing there. You can see the old mark from the old gasket, so I have to assume that's the cause of at least one of our leaks. One of many, of course. So what we're gonna do is go around this entire oil pan with gasket material. Specifically, Toyota FIPG. It is the best, hands down, and I will argue about it in the comments. So freaking nerve-wracking. Bolting something up when there's gasket maker on it and just hoping you get it right.
Oof.
It's right there.
You think it's gonna be on the place?
It is in the front.
You don't want like a couple bolts along it?
No, because we got to put the pan on very quickly after this. We're going to hope that it sticks. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But let's put the oil pan on before we find out if it is indeed going to go somewhere, all right? Okay, ready?
Yep.
I think we're about on.
Yeah.
I think we just figured out why oil was pouring out of the front of the oil pan. These guys. We were using factory Hellcat oil pan hardware, but the flange on this aftermarket swap oil pan, it's so much thinner, and when it was put on the first time, didn't realize that some of these bolts were bottoming out before the oil pan was completely tight. They would get snug. To the naked eye, it looked like they were all the way tightened down, but it wasn't until we put this silicone on here, you know, the thing they said we're not supposed to do, that you realized it wasn't pushing silicone out like it should be when you're using these bolts. We swapped to a couple different bolts in the front, shorter ones, and sure enough, when we tighten them down, silicone starts pouring out of it. Kind of sucks we didn't catch that the first time, but at least now I have some faith that when we fire this thing back up, it's gonna be dry.
Definitely.
Gucci. Now that our oil leak issues are theoretically in the past and the local wildlife is safe once again, Fernando's gonna get started refitting the front end while I do the exact opposite out back. We are gonna stick this big old ice tank right back here in the trunk, and Fernando, I do sincerely hope that you don't have any attachment to any of your trunk interior because it's all pretty much on the floor back there.
I thought you were gonna give it like a OM block.
No. On another positive note, we have since found another use for all those oil pan bolts that we couldn't use on the actual oil pan. They are now our ice tank mounting bolts. Oh yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Repurposing, recycling, we're green. Now, as for the fitting of our ice tank, it should be fairly straightforward because we already have a functional heat exchanger system on the car. We really only need to make two modifications. Number one, and this is the easy one, we need to cover our pickup down there to make sure it doesn't pick up any ice, jam up the pump, and screw everything up. On the ice tank we built for the Demon truck, before we actually welded the tank together, we built an enclosure inside of it to prevent exactly that. But since we bought a pre-made ice tank for the Z, we have to improvise. And I know you guys are probably sitting there thinking, hey, that kind of looks like a $5 shower drain protector from the hardware store. And that's because it's a $5 shower drain protector from the hardware store. But I think it will work. This next part, though, I don't think is going to be quite as easy as hacking up parts from the hardware store. We got to find somewhere on this very tiny car to run two pieces of this very thick hose all the way to the front. I was looking around the car earlier and there is no room on the inside of this thing. So that leaves us with the underside of the car as being pretty much the only option. But even down here, there's just not that much room. We could maybe snake them from the engine bay somewhere down next to the headers, but for obvious reasons, that's a horrible idea. And then once we get back here, that's kind of a problem in itself. So I don't think that's gonna work. Now, I don't know if this is gonna be any better. I don't even know if it's gonna work. They sound pretty hollow to me, though. What do you think, Fernando?
Corvette style.
Exactly. We did it on the ZR1. I don't know. Maybe it works here, too. The only real way we're going to be able to test this is to try to run a line through it. And to do that, we got to get the lines from the engine bay down into the fender. So, you know, right off the rip, we just get to annihilate Fernando's engine bay. Right down here next to the fuel line. Lines,
sounds dangerous.
wiring. Should put that on a chain, you know?
Another part for the collection.
First piece of hose through our new hole. ultimately, this is gonna end up at the heat exchanger. If we're being honest, the front of this whole deal was the easy part. But I guess, you know, we'll look at it as getting momentum, right, Fernando?
Definitely. Just keep the good vibes.
Exactly. Good vibes, always good vibes here, right? Don't get me wrong, good vibes will immediately cease if this hose does not get through there. So, Fernando, I'm shoving a hose down to you.
Oh,
That looks clear.
Yeah. Oh. There. What are you doing? Come on, we gotta get this thing done.
Pull right there. That's beautiful. I do feel like before we start celebrating, we should probably get the other hose in there. I mean, anybody can fit one hose in a hole, fitting two, and that's an accomplishment. What? This is gonna be the return line where the coolant in our supercharger gets back to the ice tank. All right, same thing, let's try it again. We there?
Yep.
All right, pull her all the way through. Keep going. All right, on the front side, that turned out, to be honest, far better than I anticipated. We can clip our side skirt fully back in. Everything's tucked back behind the fender. Let's hope the back side goes just as well. We did have to get a little more aggressive with the saw back here. Even though we had to cut more, we still retain our side skirt mounting tab. This will tuck around the side of that. And just like the front, again, this turned out really well. You gotta admit it feels good, doesn't it?
It is.
There's our icebox drain, so when we get tired of having all that hot water in the system, we can dump it all out the bottom of the car, it'll drain right in between the mufflers, and we fill it with ice, cool it down, and make more power. Now the fun part.
I don't think so.
Come on.
I'm nervous, man. Come on.
So I'm gonna command the intercooler pump on via the Holley Dominator, and theoretically, that tank's just gonna Nothing? Well, if you can't tell by the change of, angle of the car, things didn't go great trying to get this to actually fire up and get all the air out of the system. Sometimes when you have an ice box in the back and you take out the expansion tank in the engine bay, they're a little tricky to bleed, but we got it, finally. That's one more thing off the list. Now I guess we get to fire it up.
Finally.
All right, so here's how this is gonna work. We're gonna fire this up. It's gonna start great. We're gonna go home, get 3 hours of sleep, and then we'll hit the dyno in the morning, okay?
Sounds like a
Deal?
plan.
All right. Come on, baby, come on. Come on, come on. Oil pressure's good. 72 pounds. When we started this thing up, after not having run in a couple months, it sounded like there was some kind of tapping, I'm not gonna call it knocking, something coming from the blower, but then after running for another 30 seconds, after heating up a little bit, it's gone completely. It's kind of a weird one. It was 110% in the blower. It's gone now. I'd be worried more if it was in the engine. I don't know. I think we're good. Maybe we jumped the gun on getting worried about it. Maybe we should have let it work out the kinks for a second.
Think so?
Possibly. I don't know. It's late, man. It's really late. Regardless, sounds pretty good now. Hey, give it a pop. I know we had a bit of a scare there. Tonight hasn't went great, if we're being honest, but it do be chopping. All right, so new plan. We go home and get like an hour and a half of sleep, and then we come get on the dyno. A little bit 85, wake you up real good, huh?
If I only.
You know the deal. You gotta take a guess. What are you hoping for?
707, and
707.
I'm cool.
You just want to beat a Hellcat to the
Yes.
tire. Well, it seems we have an issue. The bypass valve on the blower is opening, we think. We're getting some kind of throttle position error. So hopefully it's a bypass valve issue and not an issue somewhere else in the wiring or something like that. Back here again, huh?
Looks familiar.
And I know at this very moment, it might look like we're a little bit rushed, and that's because we are. We got Rick from Big 3 on the Holly as per usual, and he leaves for Detroit Autorama in like 30 minutes. So we gotta hustle this thing back together and try to make another pull. Assuming this does work and fix our issue, this has to be some kind of record for a Hellcat bypass valve change, right?
Definitely. That was pretty wild.
So it didn't do it until it went full wide open. So like you laid into it and it didn't do it, and then the second it got to full wide open, it just slammed shut. So that's why it was acting so weird, because it didn't do it until it got enough vacuum on it.
Gotcha.
Well, we debated briefly if we should put the intake on it or leave the intake off for the dyno. We figured out which one we shouldn't do, and that's leave just this stupid coupler.
We need that.
That whole bypass valve thing turned out to be for nothing, but hey, it was a good drill, right?
It's weird that we didn't notice with the pulls before.
No, until Rick said, make someone watch the throttle body to see if it's closing, so Austin, who's behind the camera right now, watched it, and it just, crazy.
Mopar lover, right?
Yeah, #1 Mopar guy identified the problem. Watching that video back, that is crazy. It's not like there's any restriction here. This is a pretty solid coupler. I can't believe instead of just, sucking in all the free air, it decided to close that thing up. Absolutely crazy. Let's take it back off and try this whole thing again.
That sounds good!
That sounded good.
What was it?
I saw it. Oh my God. Did you see what I think I just saw?
What was it?
Hold up.
What was it?
Hold up. Sounded like you made
That sounded good. Boom!
Oh, wow! Oh my goodness!
Horsepower!
What's up?
Wait, what do you think it is?
780.
840!
Wow! There you go! Alright, let's take it off.
No. Rick says there's more.
Really?
Rick says there's more. Let's keep going. 854!
What? Go! Oh, I can breathe now. Woo!
This has been a long week, but it just came off our
Oh.
Way more than we expected. Way more.
Craziest part is, Rick said if we let this thing cool down for a couple hours, we might touch 900.
No! I definitely don't want
It
that.
could happen, but I think this is a better example of what you're gonna get in the real world, right, Fernando?
Exactly.
230 horsepower more than last dyno session. Thanks to a cam, a pulley, we didn't even put ice in it.
And thanks to you guys to give you this bad idea after you guys agree in the comments.
Yeah, we can't forget.
Yes.
They're the ones that made this happen.
Definitely.
To be fair, would have been done a lot sooner, but like 3 months ago, Fernando got rear-ended in this thing. It's been sitting at the body shop ever since. So here we are. Guess the only question left is, what's next?
Drive it. Enjoy it. Put it back to the streets. That's what this thing deserves.
Enough said. Adios.
Adios.
Timmy, look right there. Was there a torque spec on this or anything? You're just gonna stand there and try to look cool while we figure this out?